Should your home defense rifle be set up differently than your go-to-war rifle? Or should they just be the same rifle? That's an argument I have with myself on a regular basis, and I'm hoping in this video we can try to make a good determination, especially with some of your input in the comment section, because I'm literally asking for your help. Here I have two examples of those types of rifles. This is a BCM Recce 16, which is my go-to-war rifle, and then this is a Midwest Industries 10.5-inch upper on an M4E1 Aero Precision lower as my home defense rifle. And both are very capable, and I shoot both of them very well. But which one should I be prioritizing in the sense of training and shooting, and which one makes the most sense regarding priority of probability of scenarios that I might actually encounter? And that's where this discussion is going to go. So we're going to talk about each rifle, and then we'll come to some conclusions, hopefully with some of your input thereafter. And of course, we also have to get a word in from today's video sponsor. This video sponsor is TacPack. Now, TacPack is a monthly subscription service that sends you all types of accessories and parts that you can try out and stock up on, while also learning about things you might not have known existed before. There are two main tiers. There's a standard tier, which is $60 a month, and a plus tier, which is $140 a month, with a value of $240 to $300. And TacPacks have all kinds of interesting stuff inside of them, including Reptilia PDW pistol grips, Mission First tactical buttstocks, Super Sight adhesive targets, Gen 3 Enforce weapon-mounted lights, next level armament AR parts, including a charging handle, safety, as well as an end plate, and even some wacky shit like a Nodzilla t-shirt. And right now, if you use the code MAGIC, not only will you support the channel, but you'll also get a free $60 tactical gift when you sign up with the Plus tier. So make sure you check out TacPack.com, because October's TacPack is worth over $300, which means you're getting a ton of value and a lot of cool stuff from a great company that supports what we do here in this community. All right, big thanks to TacPack for supporting the channel. Now, first we're going to talk about the home defense rifle setup that I have right here. We're going to talk about the philosophy behind it, and then the concept of home defense and prioritization overall. And here's the thing, I'm just going to lead off with this. I think the most likely scenario for an American to use a rifle in self-defense is a home defense situation. And the main reason behind that is because of access. At your home, you have access to your rifle. Generally, out in public, you don't, at least as long as things are normal like they are currently. So I think that already kind of leads into a little bit of prioritization for that reason. The most likely scenario you're going to use a rifle is home defense. So should we be prioritizing our training and efficiency on the gun that makes the most sense for that? That's what we're going to try to answer, right? But first, let's talk about this particular rifle. So this is a Midwest Industries 10.5-inch 5.56 upper on an Aero Precision M4E1 lower, and this thing just rips. And one of the issues I have with this whole discussion is that I shoot this rifle really, really well. It is smooth, it has an excellent recoil impulse, and everything about it's just set up in a way that jives with me, right? And so that's always going to be a consideration. If you shoot this the best, maybe it's what you should be using, right? So I set this up specifically with home defense in mind, which is why it has a short barrel. And yes, this is an SBR. So why did I choose this optic? This is an Aimpoint Comp M5 on a Unity riser. It's a red dot sight. I think for home defense, in general, a red dot sight makes the most sense. They're generally very efficient, you get to have threat focus, and they're user-friendly. And one of the better things, in case you're new to this in the sense of shooting or firearms overall, is that red dot sights don't have to be as expensive as this one to be very good and work properly. So there's a lot of budget-friendly options out there that still get you all the benefits of a red dot sight. So I think that's a really good benefit of red dots in general, because the more access people have, the better. Now, I also think a requirement would be a white light, and this is an amalgamation of Arisaka and Surefire parts, but it gives me what I need in the sense of a light for identifying threats. And in a home defense situation, you need to identify the threat and ensure that the target you're engaging is actually a threat and not a family member or somebody else, right? So those things I think are basically requirements on a home defense rifle, because in general, in home defense, we're not talking about long distances. In general, we're going to get to that here in a second. So if you live in an urban environment or a suburban neighborhood or maybe an apartment building or whatever it may be, the likelihood of defending your home is already the main priority of why we're putting this rifle together. But the likelihood of needing a long-range engagement capable optic is basically zero. Because in a home defense situation, the enemy has already come to you. They're invading your home, which means you only have to defend the amount of space that your home occupies. And in general, for most people, that's not going to be much space or much distance. So a red dot sight can cover that very well. And in fact, they can cover out pretty far, even outside of the home if needed. So I think that's why this makes a lot of sense. Now, this particular gun has some other stuff here too, including a laser aiming module and a suppressor. And I don't necessarily think those things are required, of course, but it's how I have this gun set up. And they're actually great examples of me maybe trying to specialize too much and then not training enough on what I actually need to prioritize, because this is also set up to work at night. However, I think specializing a particular rifle for that role when it's something that you have access to maybe doesn't make as much sense as I originally anticipated. But we'll get to that here in a little bit. So if your priority is home defense, which I think is the most likely scenario, right? We know that there are existential situations that could arise where you might need something that does a little bit more than this. But if your priority is home defense, and you know that's the most likely situation where you're going to need a rifle, I think something like this is very capable of that. Even with this 10.5-inch barrel, I don't necessarily need to worry about terminal ballistics at range. I'm just trying to deal with somebody who's already inside my house, or at least within a very close distance, right? And so a lot of that stuff kind of goes out the window, and we want to prioritize speed, efficiency, ease of use because of being in a stressful situation, and still have the capability that something like this easily provides. And my ability to shoot this gun has me a little bit biased towards it because it's just so easy to shoot. It's just so simple, and there's not much to think about, and it just rips. So I really like this gun, but there are circumstances to consider. So let's talk about the go-to-war rifle, and then we can talk about which one should be prioritized and which one I need to spend more of my time with. All right, if you guys are enjoying this or getting something out of the video, please hit the subscribe button down below because it definitely helps the channel and it's free and I would appreciate it. So here we have my go-to-war rifle setup. This is a BCM Recce 16 and everything set up on it is with the intent of being able to handle whatever might happen. So whether or not that's a catastrophic situation where we have like a foreign invasion, whether or not that's just social decay where things become a lot more dangerous, whatever it is, I feel like this rifle can do it, even if I needed to use it for hunting or something along those lines. This is a 16-inch barrel. It allows me to have a little bit more range, a little bit better terminal ballistics, and there are some other considerations here to make as well regarding why I consider it a go-to-war setup. However, we do have to be realistic about the fact that a go-to-war scenario is much less likely than a home defense scenario. And that's one of the reasons why we're having this conversation, because this rifle is what I would say my favorite. Although I will say I shoot the 10.5-inch home defense rifle better, this gun is what I prefer. And there are some things that I'm gonna bring up regarding that home defense scenario here in a minute once we get into it. So first off, how did I set this up for a go-to-war situation? The rifle itself is already super high quality, which means it's reliable, it's durable, and I can trust it. But optic selection really matters in this situation as well. And in a go-to-war type situation, which, by the way, applies to a lot of different things, but we're just using the term go-to-war to keep things a little bit more consistent. So in a go-to-war scenario, I think magnification is a requirement. There's a lot of situations where you might have to take a longer range shot, you might have to take a more precise shot on somebody who's actually taking cover or hiding, which isn't necessarily what you anticipate in a home invasion scenario. So there's a lot of reasons why you might want that magnification, not to mention this rifle could also be rolled over into a hunting role or something along those lines, right? So I think magnification becomes a requirement in that sense, and what I chose was an ACOG. This is a Trijicon TA02, which is an LED illuminated ACOG with the crosshair reticle, which I find to be really simple, but also very high quality, while also having a Trijicon RCR on top, which is a red dot sight, which allows me to then engage targets at closer distances a little bit more efficiently, while also having access to passive aiming and having the ability to have a secondary redundant backup sighting system. So I think any magnification is going to be good for this type of a rifle. If that's going to be a 3x magnifier and a red dot sight for you, then I think that's a good option. If that's going to be an LPVO or even a MPVO, good to go, right? As long as you have magnification, I think that you're in the right place when it comes to a setup like this one. We're also gonna have access to white light once again, right? Except for this white light is currently turned off because it's also a vampire head from Surefire, which means it can do IR light as well. And then I'm also running this suppressor in order to ensure that I have a reduced signature when required. Now here's the thing. This rifle, although the priority of most Americans in most scenarios is going to be home defense, might actually make more sense for me in a home defense and a go-to-war situation, which is where the argument for should we have different setups comes into play. I have different setups because, well, I like guns and I like testing things out and I like trying out different formats to see if it works better for me or whatever. But in reality, the more I learn, and I do learn in the sense of research and talking to people who have a lot more experience than I do, because I don't have law enforcement or military experience, so just want to make sure you're aware of that. I have to consider what's the most probable situation for me. And for me, I have a home on property. And for me, I have 400-yard sight lines on my property. And for me, I have early warning systems on the property that tell me if somebody's coming down my driveway, that tell me if somebody is on the property when they shouldn't be, that tell me a lot of things before they get to my home. And if I'm in a situation where I have to engage somebody before they get to my home, because they've been warned, they've been told to leave, and they're still progressing and they're showing an intent for malice, then I want the capability to do that efficiently. And in reality, even though I shoot that other gun better, I mean, it's just the truth. I like this rifle better and it's my favorite, but the other gun I just shoot better. Even in that situation, I want to be able to reach out if needed. I want to be able to reach out. I want to be able to also identify targets faster at distance if required. I don't want to have to rely on close quarters distances to defend my home because of my particular circumstance. But that's not most people's situation. Most people live in a neighborhood or in an apartment or in an urban environment. And in most situations for that home defense scenario, that red dot 10.5-inch barreled small rifle that's handy and quick and fast is going to be a better option because magnification and terminal ballistics aren't going to matter as much. But in this situation, I have access to a red dot in case I need to be a little bit faster when things get close up, but also access to a high quality magnified optic, which allows me to reach out with precision if needed. And I also have the same rifle being the one I would grab if things fell apart greatly, which means if I need to roll it over into a hunting roll, or if I need to reach out further than what it's intended to be able to be used for, or if I just need it to last for a very long time, this rifle has all of those capabilities already built into it. And so there's a lot of considerations there. And which one should you prioritize and what should you be shooting the most, training on the most, and how much does capability in the sense of how proficient you are with one over the other outweigh the setup and what it allows you to accomplish in that circumstance? That's the big question. So let's kind of wrap this up by just talking about the two and giving you some ideas, and then I'd love to hear your feedback in the comments because I'm literally asking for your help. I want to know your thought process and I want to know what you would do and what you think people should be training on the most. So let's finish this up. All right, so here's the big question. Which one of these should you prioritize? The home defense setup or the go-to-war setup? Or should you even have two different setups at all? Should you be prioritizing home defense mainly and just use this rifle in a go-to-war scenario because you practice with it, you're proficient with it, and it's capable of doing that role if needed? Or do you use something like this go-to-war setup as your home defense setup because it makes sense for your circumstances, like mine? Having access to extended ranges and better terminal ballistics makes sense when I have a lot of property to protect, especially because I can warn someone who might be a threat before they get to my home. Whereas this is going to make a lot more sense for people who don't have property and are only worried about someone entering their actual home. So I'd love to hear your feedback in the comments because a lot of you have more experience than I do, and I greatly appreciate you sharing that knowledge. And one thing I want to mention is that although I really like this rifle and I shoot it very well, I think this one makes a little bit more sense, but it also doesn't make sense to have a rifle that's set up to do other specific tasks using things like laser aiming modules and then not have that on the main rifle. I should be able to do anything that I'm considering in a bad situation on the rifle I'm going to choose and use most of the time. So I'll probably end up switching a couple of things up to try to prioritize and maximize what I can accomplish with this setup, rather than splitting things up and thinking I'll have a choice to choose between this or that when something really bad occurs. And then by using this as my home defense rifle, I'll practice with it more, I'll become more proficient, and if a go-to-war collapse type scenario occurs, I'll already be good with this and ready to go. Whereas if you're prioritizing a home defense rifle, but then you have a go-to-war rifle set up, and then you're using this all the time and training with it, but then a go-to-war type situation occurs, and you run out the door with this instead, are you actually efficient with it? And are you actually good with it? Or should you just grab this anyway because you know how to use it? All considerations, I don't necessarily know the answer, but I do know that I'm choosing this rifle mainly, and I'm gonna take some of the accessories off of this one and combine it into the one that I know I can rely on in any situation. So let me know all your comments down below. Anything else you need from me at all, go to magicprepper.com. There's a lot of ways to support the channel there, as well as some other resources. And besides that, that's gonna be it for Magic Prepper.